got a message today where if you have a tendency to do that, you might start beating yourself up. And I don't want that, because before anything else, you're loved. Before you did anything right, before you did anything wrong, you've been loved the whole time. And since you've done things right and since you've done things wrong, guess what? You've still been loved the whole time. The love, it doesn't stop. It's not based in your goodness. It's not based in your badness. You're loved. And I want that to be known before we get into this, because this message is very different to my normal kind of message. So hold on to your hats, strap in, and let's have a look where we go. Does everyone remember the time in the scriptures where Jesus likens himself to a snake? Does anyone? Everyone's looking at me like. Okay, so in John, just before John 3:16, the one that the passage that we all know, just before it in John 3:14, he says, "Just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up." What a strange thing to say. What a strange thing to say. And some of you guys, you Bible nerds out there, and I say that with love because I'm a Bible nerd too, so you can be offensive when you're offending yourself. That's the rule, right? You can. But all you Bible nerds out there, you might know where I'm going with this, but what Jesus is doing here is riffing off of a passage in Numbers 21, 4-9. And it goes something a little like this. So, Israel, that nation of Israel, they were enslaved under tyrannical Egypt. And it wasn't very good there. And it was a tough time. It was really tough. And who knows that God really doesn't like tyranny, doesn't like oppression. Yeah, that's the way God is. He doesn't like that stuff. And he, after this moment, he's constantly telling the Israelites, don't be like Egypt, don't be oppressive, don't be a tyranny. Anyway, so he doesn't like it. So he liberates them from tyranny and takes them out from under the oppression of the Egyptians. And then they find themselves in the desert, which isn't that great, really. The desert isn't too good. It's not the best place. And nevertheless, they're in the desert. And they're wandering around for like a very long time out there. And they're learning things. They're restructuring their thoughts. They've got to, this mentality of being a slave it's taking its time to, they got to come out from that. Like, it's cool to not actually be physically in slavery, but it takes a while for the mind to be renewed. Oh yeah, I'm free and things are different now. And, we get to do all this differently. And so God's on this journey and this process of teaching them how to be free, teaching them who they are, teaching, actually who you are. You're not a slave, you're Israel, and this is what I think about you, and this is how you are to roll in the world. This is how you are to be, because there's a great calling on their life, and there's a great calling on your life. And sometimes, when we come out from under the slavery of sin and death and we become a Christian, it takes us quite a while to think like a free man or a free woman. And sometimes it takes a while for us to realise, who we are in God and what the great call is on our life. And there's all this discovery that's got to take place, like what you've got to do, Cam. And because there's something good that God wants to do through your life, and there's something good that he wants to do through all your lives. And it's the same thing for Israel. So they're out there trying to find themselves, trying to figure it all out. And it's getting tough and it's hard, and they're in the desert. It's not a great place to be. It's kind of tough and it's hard work. And so they get to a point where they're grumbling, and it's kind of like, what gives? This sucks. There's no damn food or water. And there's almost like a moment where you can sort of hear, it's like, what'd you bring us out of Egypt for? Yeah. Like, why are we even here? Like, you've brought us out here to die? Like, Egypt was better than being out here. They get to this point where it's like, man, Egypt's kind of looking pretty comfy back there. At least there was food and water. And none of these quails and mannas that taste like crap now. They were kind of cool at the start, but now it tastes disgusting. And they grumble. They actually talk about that. Like they're over this food. They're over it. And they start to grumble and they speak against God and they speak against Moses. And this is where it all gets really crazy. It's super weird, and hold on to your hats. Because what happens is when they start to grumble, like I said, you can look this up in Numbers 21, 4-9, for those of you that want to actually read it and not just listen to the Luke Boyd version. What happens is they've grumbled and they've spoken against God and Moses. Now, so what happens? Now snakes are coming out and they're biting them. This is what happens next. It's like, this sucks. Oh, wouldn't Egypt be better? And and they screw you, God, and screw you, Moses. You brought us out here to die, and this food sucks. Next thing they know, now the snakes, God seems to allow snakes to come out and to start biting them. It's a heavy moment in Scripture. Now, there's a lot of rabbit holes that pop up here for some people. They're like, oh, so does that mean... Let's not try and get bogged down. Let's keep going with the story and see where it's going. The snakes, right? They're starting to bite them. Some of them are dying. They're hating it. And they get to this moment where the Israelites, they kind of like, hey, Moses, you seem pretty chummy with God. How about you have a chat with him and get him to stop, like pump the brakes on these snakes, you know? And I can't help, and this is the cross I have to bear, but I start thinking of all these funny things, and I like to imagine in that moment that there's someone like Samuel L. Jackson there. It's just like, anyway, that's my cross to bear. And, there's all these kinds of people there, just like me and you, and they're like, oh, can we do something here? Like, thanks, Narlin. Isn't she a gem? She's a babe too, yeah. That's my cross to bear too, guys. I can't help but see Samuel L. Jackson there complaining, can you get the snakes to stop biting us? Anyway, so Moses does go and have a chat. He takes the advice of the people. He's like, yeah, maybe I should go and talk to God. So he goes and talks to God and is like, hey, can we pump the brakes? And he definitely doesn't speak to God like Samuel L. Jackson would have spoken. And then God does this thing that is like actually not what you would think would happen. And it's very interesting. And I've been on my own journey going through this, thinking about it, meditating on it, and trying to apply it to my life. And this sermon's kind of like homework for you guys to go and take after today and sort of walk with it and chew on it for the rest of your week and life. I don't know. But what ends up happening is, God asks Moses to make a bronze image of the subject of their suffering. He actually asks Moses to make a snake, cast it in bronze, and put it on a stick and hold it up. And it's like, that's super strange. And but the deal was, if he made it and he held it up, and when the people were getting bitten by snakes, if they would, if they're like drag themselves over to the stick and have a look at it, they would be healed and the poison wouldn't kill them anymore. So if they cast their eyes upon the subject of their fear and loathing, if they were able to get to it and have a look at it, they would live. And it's super interesting because the snake on the stick, I don't know if you've seen like our medical symbols or hospital symbols. They have like this stick and a snake, and hundreds of years after this, the Greek mythology had a similar thing. This god that had a stick with a snake, and it represented healing too. It's very strange. But yeah, there's this weird healing thing that takes place, and these guys are getting healed. Very, very strange. And so I just want to talk a little bit about the snakes, because there's snakes in the Bible, right? And there's snakes in the desert, there's a snake in the garden, and we often think of that snake in the garden as being Satan, and there's a moment when even Jesus calls Peter Satan, and it's like, what is all this? What's the connection here? What's the connection? And this is, in my humble opinion, it's like the snakes symbolize fear and opposition to God. Fear and opposition to God. The snakes are symbolizing. And it's like almost these snakes in the wilderness are like almost like the embodiment of their fear and their opposition to God. It's like the snakes are super representative of that. And interestingly enough, the snakes actually don't get called off. So they're left there dealing with the snakes, dealing with them. And I think this is me. I think that's because there's no calling off the snakes in life. There's even one in the Garden of Eden, for goodness sake. There's just no calling off the damn snakes. There's always going to be, within our culture, I feel like there's always going to be opposition and fear to God. There's going to be fear and opposition to God in our culture, and we'll see it in our community, fear and opposition to God. We'll see it in our friends, fear and opposition to God. You definitely see it in your wife, fear and opposition to God. Oh, this crowd's tough. But then you see it in yourself if you let yourself. There's snakes in our own heart. And I don't mean that literally, and I'm not meaning it spiritually like, oh, there's snakes and you need to. What I'm talking about is opposition to God and fear. We have that. We carry that. Very interesting. Very interesting. So it's like there's no calling off these snakes. There's always going to be opposition. And so the point is like, what do we have to do? What do we get from this story? We actually have to face these things. We actually have to not shy away or not just sort of like not look at them or just hope they stay in the bush. We actually have to, at some point in our life, if we want to move forward and progress and find all the goodness of life and live our life in abundance the way we're all called to do, at some point we have to actually face our fears. At some point we have to face our own opposition to God. And this is the encouragement that I want to give to every one of you. I'm on my own journey in doing this. It's a challenge. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's good. I'm saying it's good. And it's good for you. It's good for me. And we move somewhere better when we do it. So yeah, I find when I say things like, oh, our fear and our opposition to God, I know some of us are like, oh yeah, that's cool, yeah. But for me, it's just, I'm going to get real open and honest right now. Some of the things that I'm working on, I remember when I was young, I always used to look at people and it was almost like a knee-jerk reaction. I would see the good in them. That was just the way I was wired when I was younger. But after time and after some circumstances and after certain experiences, it's become really easy for me to actually go the opposite now. Oh yeah, I can see that. This guy, and I go to the negative first of all. And this is in opposition to the way of God. God doesn't want me to be an expert at looking at the worst in people. You know how some people think that's their spiritual gift? Have you ever met someone like that? It's like, are you serious, mate? Like, really? That's your gift? To see what's worst in people? You're a moron. With all due respect. And so, that's where I'm at. I'm at trying to bring that back, curb that opposition to the way of God, amongst many other things. And my encouragement is today is for all you guys to, have a think about what you're afraid of, what's causing opposition to the divine flow of the way of God that's trying to move throughout the universe. What is it in us? And that's the homework for you guys. Because the way I'm dealing with it is that, and this is how it works. It's kind of like this. I've got a pool in my backyard, and around the pool there's these pavers, and they suck, and I hate them. I cannot wait till I rip them all out and do up the backyard. But for now, it is what it is. And anyway, there's these weeds that grow there, yeah? And I hate these weeds. I cannot get rid of them. I'm always having to do the weeds, always. But in winter, when it's cooler, they just sort of sit there. And it's okay, I can just pick them and, but as soon as the heat gets applied, boof, the weeds pop up, and I have to face them, get out there and get it done. And I just want to encourage you guys that if we just leave the weeds when it's cool, that's fine. It's probably manageable. But when the heat gets turned on in your life, bang, all these things that you're not dealing with and that we're not facing and confronting, it blows up in our face, and it's like, now I've got to really do some work to get this stuff going. My encouragement is that to overcome these things is we got to face it. We got to confront it and learn to contend with it. Just like the Israelites, they had to learn to contend with the snakes. They had to learn how to deal with them. Through confrontation, through facing them and moving forward. Very challenging stuff. How's everyone going? Great. Oh, it is? That's good. That's good. That's better feedback than what I thought I might have received. Because, if we take the next 5, I'm sure I could say, the next 5 minutes, let's all stand up and just have a think, have a good, hard look at yourself and come up with a list. A lot of us would find it really easy to find. We know what's going on within us. We know. And sometimes we don't want to think about it, but sometimes we actually have to if we want to move forward and grow. And I'm sorry I have to be the guy that says it, but for whatever reason, I am the guy that's saying it today. It's an encouragement. Unless you're a sociopath or a narcissist, because I find those guys find it really hard to see what's not so good in themselves. And no offense, but it would be a challenge for you to find what's hard, what's bad, and what's not so good about yourself. And no offense if you are one, but it was hard. It was hard for me. It was hard for me for a while because I think I might have had a little bit of it. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit of a sociopath. Maybe a little bit of a narcissist. Look, hey, this is just real talk. It took me a while to figure out, I'm not perfect. Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, wow, okay, whoa, yeah. And now I got to work on these things. So there's grace, guys, there's grace. Hey, because remember Jesus likened himself. I started it with Jesus. Thank goodness I started it with Jesus. And thank goodness we're going back to him in the end of the message. Come on. We have to make it a little bit lighthearted when we're talking about these sort of matters, don't we? Yeah? Yeah. Good. Yeah. All right. So Jesus, he's saying that I got to be like this. I got to be raised up like this snake in the wilderness. And it's something like, when we look to Jesus on the cross, it's like all of the fear and opposition to God, that's where it goes in our life. We have to sort of, it's not just for us to carry, Jesus has to bring it all to his feet. And it's on the cross with him. And we die to it. We learn to face it. We die to it. And on the other side, the deal is that when we do this, there's resurrection life on the other side. because the story just doesn't end with death. There's resurrection life at the end. And so as we face our fears and our opposition to God, and we learn to contend with it and we die to it, there's actually, on the other side of it, there's life. There's resurrection life on the other side, and we learn and we grow and we move forward into a better day. And that's the encouragement I wanted to share with you guys. So that's it this morning, church. It's an encouragement, I hope, and I hope that we can all take it as such. I had to be super honest with it. I actually didn't even want to do this message, but I felt so compelled to do it, to encourage you guys to actually have a crack at this, because like I said earlier, sometimes in life when we want to move forward and, you know, if we keep avoiding what we need to face and confront, we get stuck. And my prayer is that if any of us are stuck, that we'd look to Jesus. That we'd look to Jesus who can get us unstuck. Jesus is the one that can get us unstuck. So yeah, church, if we could all stand, I'm just going to pray.